Atelier.
Hi.
Oh, maybe we should also introduce ourselves in case you have new people watching. So I'm Chen Chen,
William.
and we're the owners of Craft Atelier. It's a craft studio located in Singapore, and we are quite known for weaving because we are the only weaving studio in Singapore. So actually, the purpose of this video today is to talk to people about weaving. We do get a lot of questions about weaving because we are if you wanted to learn weaving in Singapore, we are probably the place to go.
Because we do teach and provide a lot of tools and equipment for all kinds of weaving, so it's not just a particular type.
And I think what we also do as a service is if you're not sure what kind of weaving you want to do, we provide a range of exploration. We have equipment for purchase and also for leasing, home leasing or studio use. And I think the other service that people don't really, not really talked about a lot on our website is that we actually help match people with the kind of loom that's suitable for them.
And of course, the first question that people, when they come to us and say, how can I start weaving? The first question we ask them is, what do you want to make weaving? So that can give us a better idea of which of all these tools to recommend.
So I think maybe just a quick introduction. Weaving is actually the interlacing of materials, and these materials need not be limited to yarn. So of course you have seen people weaving with plant materials, so ketupat weaving. Of course you have people who weave rattan, so to make baskets and things like that. Specifically in our shop, when we talk about weaving, we talk about weaving with fiber materials, so yarns, threads. And I think one thing that people don't really know is when you weave something with yarns or thread, you actually form cloth, you form fabric. But there are many different types of fabric that you can make with weaving. So I think what we want to do is to kind of broadly categorize. You can say there are like 3 broad categories. So when you weave, because it's interlacing, there will always be materials going lengthwise and then materials going horizontally. Typically, right, it's perpendicular to each other. So the ones that go lengthwise is the warp, W-A-R-P, and the ones that go horizontally from left to right is called weft. I always tell people it's very easy to remember because you just change the left, L-E-F-T, just change it to W for weaving, you get the horizontal line. And so the 3 broad categories largely are warp dominant, so you see more warp than weft. Then you see the weft dominant, which is you see more weft than warp. And then there's the balance, which is you kind of see both, right? Yeah.
So in terms of what we offer, there will be a lot of you who might say, oh, how could I come in and do a short project? We do have short projects, and most of the time we would have queries about this type of weaving because that's the type that is very popular now for decoration and for, I think a lot of people just explore weaving as a very introductory experience where they learn about the interlacing with the up and down of threads. Right? So tapestry weaving is probably what a lot of people know as.
Yes. So 2 experience that you can kind of get with this. So this is weft dominant weaving. The reason why we say that is if you look, you actually see more horizontals than the verticals. You don't really see the warp as much. In fact, the warp is usually in a very neutral color and hidden away. Like what Len say, it's very popular now. So what we have actually is we have it in a small kit. So our mini loom kit looks like this. Weft dominant weaving are largely done on what we call frame looms. So it's a frame. So you would see all these samples that we hold up, right? All have like a wooden frame or some kind of frame that holds up the weft and the warp. So these are what we call frame looms. And so we offer this as a kit that you can buy. And then we offer that as I think it's called our experience.
Introduction to tapestry.
Yeah, introduction to tapestry weaving. For school workshops and corporate workshops or community workshops, we do offer it in this version. Now, the reason why we do this is because we start with this. These are weaving that you can replicate easily at home. You don't need to have a very sophisticated loom or a specific loom in particular to do it. Like, of course, there are looms that are built for this purpose, but you can also just use a photo frame or a cardboard frame or even a circular embroidery hook to act as your frame for this sort of weaving. So there is very traditional tapestry methods, which you go to museums and you see medieval tapestry, that's tapestry weaving as well. So there are techniques to create very intricate pictures and designs. But there are also the modern method, which is more focused on getting textures, color plays, and stuff like that. So we would generally say if you want something that you can come in, learn for a brief moment, and go home and do, then it would largely be things like this. Because techniques are quick to learn, and then the equipment is not expensive. Now the only thing is you need to know that weft dominant weaving does take time, and in particular because these are simpler looms that you have, the loom doesn't do so much of the work for you. The work will take you a bit longer. So like something like this small might take anywhere from 1 to 2 hours to finish if you use fine materials, like fine yarns. And I think this one takes about 2 to 3 hours, and that's because we use quite thick yarns. If you use much thinner yarns, it may take you much longer. But it's something you can take home and do.
Yeah. The process is absolutely manual. There's nothing automated about this. There's nothing to accelerate the process. So therefore, even young children can access this type of weaving because there's no complicated process. There's no complicated tools that they need to manage. So this is something that even young children can learn.
And I think the other thing about weft-based weaving is that because at least in this form, in tapestry form, you can be very, very creative about how you interlace the yarns, because you don't need to worry about creating a cloth that will hold up to any particular kind of use, right?
And you don't have to be restricted to fibers as well. A lot of people weave in paper, straw,
plants. Actually, people weave it in dried
because
flowers.
these types of weaving typically are more for decoration, which means you're not going to wash them, you're not going to handle them a lot. They either stay up on the loom as a display or we get hung on the wall as a wall decoration. So in terms of the materials, you have a broader choice. You are not restricted to something that can stand up to washing.
Yes, so that's where we typically would start first. And I think if you do watch a lot of social media, that might be what you would see quite a bit of. Then the next category of weaving that we do quite often here in the studio is what we call the balance weaving. Balance weaving basically will create the kind of fabric that you and me are familiar with, which is the cloth that we wear. Because what you would see is a balanced fabric has drape. One of the key criteria is it will actually drape quite well. It would also be very often quite readable if you have the right materials, because in the interlacing there is space, right? Because you need to see both warp and weft we create gaps. There's some amount of space between each line of weaving that allows the fabric to be fairly readable, which is not something you see in the other two categories of fabric. You see less of it. So I think balance weaving generally lends itself to wearable fabrics. And with that, the easiest foray into it is actually to use a rigid header loom that you can see up front here in front of us. We have two rigid header looms. So this one here is the shag cricket loom. This is actually the loom that we use for most of our rigid, I would say all of our rigid header weaving class, starting from our weave a scarf class. So that class gives you the chance to experience weaving on the rigid header loom. We don't teach you to set up the loom in that class. It is really for people who want to come, try the experience at making cloth, and take home a scarf that they can use.
So in terms of time commitment, it is fairly low. In terms of cost, it's also manageable because you're not buying any material. You're not buying equipment home.
You're using it in the studio and then you take home what you create. So in that case, if you check out our Weave a Scarf class, that is the class that you're looking at. A 6-inch scarf is what you're weaving. This is about 1.5 times the width actually of what you will be doing. But you will notice here, we actually feature quite a number of yarn colors. The reason is because at this moment while we're making this video, for the last few years, we have been using locally hand-dyed yarns for this class to showcase how, even with very simple weaving, which is just plain weave, normal interlacing, one over, one under, you get very interesting color designs. If you use variegated yarns and you use hand-dyed yarns, you know, from afar, sometimes people tell me, oh, it looks like plaid, but it's not really plaid, or it looks like striping, but it's not really striping. That movement of colors, it always brings about surprise to the people.
Especially when you're using hand-dyed yarn. So you can use commercially dyed yarn for this purpose, right? But because commercially dyed yarns would have regular color changes, changes. So then you can get an actual plan because you
Yes,
get
correct.
a regular color change and a regular interlacing. So you could get very regular squares.
So maybe just to show you, this is done on the rigid header loom on commercially dyed yarn, so in two colors, the teal and red color. So a lot of people think that plain weave, oh, then that's all you can do. Plain weave actually allows us to create patterns like this, a log cabin design. So like William said, by the choice of colors, we can create certain looks and certain patterns. So houndstooth is another pattern that you create with plain weave. And in case some people say, okay, then is that all the rigid header loom can do? Actually, the rigid header loom is small. We always say it's small, but it's mighty. So this is a 15-inch loom. Just need to know rigid header looms typically don't come in a stand. Okay, so we'll use it on the tabletop. So it's very, very portable. This fits like right in your cupboard.
And we have a lot of customers who put it in their lap when they're watching TV in the living room, and they have it in their lap and they do their work.
So of course that makes the assumption that you have the loom at home. So when the rigid header, if you really do enjoy weaving, actually most of the weavers in Singapore enter through the rigid header weaving route because the looms are portable, right? You can store them in a cupboard and they are fairly affordable compared to the other kind of looms that you can get. So we do a class called Getting Started with Rigid Header Weaving. So that loom will allow, now you have, previously that class was always bundled with the cricket loom. And we'll teach you how to dress your loom, so put the warp on your loom, and how to weave the weft into the warp. But since this year onwards, we have offered the class with the option to switch another rigid header loom, which is this little guy, well, not very little, guy over here called the Kromsky Hub. That's a 24-inch loom for rigid header weavers who want something wider. So that's another option that you can get with the introduction to getting started with rigid header weaving class. So two loom options, and if you are actually not sure if you want to get a loom but you want to learn the setup before you decide on the loom, we also offer a rental option. That's all from this year onwards. Because we know actually getting a loom is kind of a little bit like a long-term relationship. You may need some time to get to know the looms.
And for a lot of weavers, until they have tried different types of weaving, they might not be very sure what is the type of weaving they really enjoy.
But I think go back to the point about it being small and mighty. I know a lot of people tell me, oh, so the rigid header loom can only do plain weaving. Just to let you know that it's not true. With a rigid header loom, you can do pattern work. You just need to utilize a pickup stick. The loom does some of the lifting and lowering for you compared to the frame loom. So that there's this added advantage of it already helping you with the picking up the interlacement. And if you throw in a pickup stick, you can actually do very more complex texture and pattern work that you can see here. And again, this is done completely out of hand-dyed yarns, commercial yarns in different colors and different blending. So right now even the Shed cricket loom has an adapter that will make it a cable loom. So there's really no limits. I wouldn't say no limits, but the limits are being eroded.
And you have a lot more to explore than what you typically see. Because what people share is just what they are exploring. And there are so many things to do. And if you look at a loom that is 15 inch, you go, what can I do with a cloth that is 15 inch? Actually, for most of our garments, if you look at the construct of clothes, a lot of our garments are in 4 pieces at least. The front, left and right pieces, the back, left and right pieces. So most people can fit into a 15-inch half panel.
And also not just that, like sometimes I think maybe in Singapore we may not want to wear a completely hand-woven piece. But you may want to just do like your normal clothes and then you want to make it a bit different, you may just do a panel.
Or pocket.
Yeah, or pocket. And so that actually works with a 15-inch loom. And in case you're very eager to loom and you may not explore further, we do run study groups. So we realize with weaving, it's hard for us to teach everything. Weaving is such a big rabbit hole to go down. It's not possible to teach everything.
Because even one topic on, let's say, how to play with colors.
Yeah, like plain weave. There's like so many different projects you could do.
You can dream up of all kinds of color combinations in different order, sequence, and come up with different patterns just on plain weave.
Yes, and you can have other effects like with plain weave, you can pull your web, pull your warp, plus your web, plus your warp. There's just so many combinations. So we do have study groups to help people get further with their weaving in a very safe kind of exploratory manner. So that's the rigid header loom. The next more complex balance weave fabric that people do, and these looms tend to lend themselves quite well to it, is a fabric with slightly more complex motifs and patterns. Now this same motif, I'm not sure if you can see on the camera, and maybe wait a while for the camera to pick it up. There are some diamond motifs here. Naturally, you can do this on a rigid header loom. To be fair, you can do it.
You can even do that on the frame loom.
Oh yes, you could. It just requires a lot more control by the weaver. The frame loom, you must be sure not to overpack it. On the rigid header loom, actually I do have it here. Just give me a minute. You will see that I have done diamonds up in front. So you can do it, it's just that the effort is a lot more. So people start to move towards multi-shaft looms, more commonly known as the table loom. The table loom because it sits on the table, and then the floor loom because it sits on the floor. So maybe just a quick introduction. This is the Le Croc Voyager, so it's a table loom. Table looms are identified by the levers. We picked this to showcase because the levers are colored, so it makes it easier to see on the camera. So with the levers, you can sort of lift and lower your threads according to a predetermined pattern, right? On the floor loom, this is a wet spring floor loom. You would see that pedals up front, and if you depress the pedals, what will happen is the shafts will lift and lower, again lifting up the pattern to give you the motif that you want. So because there is more combination, you can see over here, there's only a combination of up and down. This one you can have like various up and various downs. It just allows for more complex motifs. Right? Yeah.
Because these are not the most complicated looms. There are mechanized looms where they can lift individual threads. Right now, we are lifting in a certain sequence because the threads are in a certain order. But I am not able to say I only want one of those threads up. But there are mechanized looms that can do that, cut looms, and they are able to weave any pattern, literally any pattern that you want to.
And for those of you who are a bit geeky like me, the jacquard loom, because it uses a punch card system to lift and lower each, to tell the loom when to lift and lower each individual thread. It actually inspired programming. So it inspired one of the first computers because Charles Babbage, a mathematician who was trying to solve this problem, saw a jacquard loom and realized that actually if a loom can control individual threads using a binary, a hole in the punch card or no hole in the punch card, then quite honestly you can get you can automate the system using electricity because you can have just a switch on, switch off mode, and that's really how modern computing came about. So I mean these are like the granddaddies of your computers, your laptops and stuff like that. So yes, so this is the multi-shaft looms. For the multi-shaft looms, we do run classes. It's not listed publicly because it's rare. Number one, it's not common for people to want to take lessons in this because it takes time to set up the loom, to fully teach you how to set up the loom, multi-shaft loom, and weave just a little bit on it. It will take about 2 full days, and you go home with a very small sampler only. So it is on a request basis. However, if you're not really looking to learn how to set up the loom, and you just want to come in, try your hand at weaving one of these looms, weaving on one of the floor looms. We do have a drop-in weaving like a service. Get in touch with us. We're trying to get a way to put it online so that you can book it. But for now, just message us, and then you can book in a time to come and try the floor looms.
So with drop-in weaving, it is more free and easy. You have your choice of what kind of weft you want to put in. There's no fixed material that you need to use. You want to use thick yarns, thin yarns, it's up to you, right? And how long a cloth do you have to weave? It's
It's also up to you because the charges are by length. And I mean, if you want, you could even weave paper and weave plants into it. You just need to know you can't wash that piece of fabric. So I think that largely concludes balance weaving. So maybe you can take us through the last category of weaving, which is warp dominant weaving.
So your warp dominant weave is where you see only the warp. Okay, so you can see this band. All these colors are warp threads. Okay, and you don't see any of the weft threads. So this is in direct opposition to the tapestry weaving, where you see only the weft and you don't see the
one, you only see the horizontal lines. the other one you see only the particular.
So this type of weaving, it tends to be very dense, just like in the tapestry weave. Okay, they are very dense, but these have typically a very traditional use as straps and bands, either as trims to your clothing or as back straps. Typically these days, a lot of people use them to customize a camera strap or to
Guitar strap?
Guitar strap. Ukulele. A lot of people would customize with names for ukulele, right? So they are
I
very
also pet dishes. Pet
yeah.
collars.
And there are people who weave multiples of this and weave their own stool cover, so that you have a chair cover, right? So these are quite handy. And the looms that are used to weave them, other than the plain patterns, you can also have pickup patterns. So just now when I said you could customize, you could actually spell the person's name if you are planning to make it as a gift. The looms that weave these are actually very simple looms.
That's an Ashford.
So this is an Ashford Inkle loom. The design of Inkle looms we have from Shag, from Ashford, they are mostly unchanged since they were invented. There hasn't been a lot of changes. And other than Inkle weaving, you can also do tablet weaving, which will also give you pens. They are basically just pens. And they hold the warp in place. And the warp is a continuous warp, like a belt. So when you want to move your warp forward, like all these looms, they have mechanisms that release the back and then we roll to the front. And it is single direction, right? But on these looms, it's as if you're adjusting your belt. If your buckle is here and you want to straighten it to the center, you adjust the whole thing and pull it forward. Okay, so the warp on this thing is a continuous loop, it's a circle. Yeah. So that itself is slightly different from the other setup.
So, I mean, clearly there is a lot to weaving, there is a lot, I mean, just the types of looms, there are so many types already. It's hard, I know it's quite a lot of information in this video, it's not always easy for people to like understand everything. So we do invite you to come in for conversations with us. I think that's the whole purpose why we exist, so that people can come in and talk to us about weaving.
Yeah. And so when you give us an idea of what you would like to do with your weaving, we would have an easier time recommending suitable looms that you could try. Because if you have in mind certain things that you want to accomplish with your weaving, then you would be better off starting on the correct loom or the correct type of loom than to explore randomly.
But if you're not sure, like you are like, I just want to try it for the sake of trying it, then we would suggest a few classes that we typically would suggest is you can try the tapestry weaving. If you want something small that you can take home and continue weaving with at home, because the tapestry loom, we choose this particular Shag Easel loom is because the tapestry can be removed from it. Your weaving can be removed and you can use the loom again. So that's one way. If you want something that's small, portable, not too expensive, and then you can take it home, that would be it. If you are looking to weave and you don't actually look to doing it again at home, then the weave a scarf experience we feel is the best, because in the time that you spend with us, you will take home a completed usable piece. So it's a scarf. It's a beautiful scarf in a locally hand-dyed colorway. And the other one is if you feel maybe a scarf is not quite your thing, you just want a piece of fabric, big, small, then drop-in weaving, I think, would be the option. So that's really kind of how you would choose amongst the different weaving. Now, you would notice in our sharing, I mentioned certain brands. There's the Ashford, the Luette, the Kromsky, and the Shag. Now, these are the internationally quite well-known looms. Yes, I forgot. This is new, right? So these are brands that are quite known internationally among weavers in different countries, and we do represent the companies here, which is why we are able to try their different looms. You know, like Shag has its cable loom, Shag has its floor loom, Luette also has its cable loom, so does Ashford, so on and so forth. So we would, this gives us the experience to talk you through your experience before you purchase anything. If you do get a loom, it is not just a monetary investment, it's also a space investment, and it takes time. Before you can weave, you have to dress the loom, you have to set it up with the necessary warp threads for weaving to take place. And so we are here to help you understand that process. So it's a bit like you can't know what you're getting into before you spend the money.
Because a piece of equipment that is used for weaving, other than the frame looms, because they are pretty small in size. Everything else takes up a fair amount of space. This is really very different from starting a hobby like knitting or crochet, because you can start with just a knitting needle, a pair of knitting needles, or a crochet hook. But this is something that's completely different. There are people who have jumped down the rabbit hole and end up collecting loops.
I mean,
We just had several customers drop in and say, yeah, they have this at home, and I go,
it is. I mean, I was just having this conversation with the gentleman yesterday, and well, it's very different. I think weaving is quite different from other fiber related crafts. There's a certain logic and engineering to it, so it doesn't have its appeal. Like Pak then say, the drawback is that the upfront investment is high. Like you need many a times for more complex weaving, you will have to invest in the equipment. There's no running away from it. But I mean, frame looms are a good way to start. Once you get bitten by the weaving bug, it is the never-ending cycle. So I mean, this is why we say come and experience it with us first before you launch into purchasing an equipment. We have equipment for rent. I think with the exception of the floor loom, which you clearly cannot rent because you need a mover to take it home with you. The table looms that fold, the rigid header looms, the small ones, the big ones, the wide ones, the narrow one. Yeah, they all can be rented. Even the inker loom, I think it's just the floor looms and the frame looms that we don't rent home. Frame looms simply because they're not that big an investment. And floor looms because, well, the price of moving it home is higher than our rental. Yeah, so that is largely it, I think.
So, to us.
Yeah.
Because then you have the option of trying out the looms before deciding on the one that's instead of collecting them.
Hard to find a forever loom. I've not found my forever, and I don't believe I'll ever find it. Like there's always always loom envy and
you
loom
could
lust.
have a forever loom, but you probably wouldn't have one forever loom.
Yes. So we are here to just try and help you get going with your weaving journey. So if anything, do just get in touch with us. We can be contacted through Instagram, Facebook, and if you live about that, even locally in Singapore, you can just WhatsApp us at our phone number. It is a WhatsApp.
What's an email?
Oh yes, email works. But if you live locally, nothing beats coming in for a conversation because it's hard to explain the different types of loom virtually.
Because when you see the samples from the different looms, then you kind of have a better idea. This is what you mean by top.
Yes.
Right? This is what you mean by a band. This is what you mean by a tapestry.
Yep, and so that is largely it from us. We'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much.